How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today I'm taking a look at Egypt, pre-civilization, or pre-civilization Egypt as it's called on the Steam page. Now this game is sort of a recreation of Egyptian history from its humble beginnings as a small tribe along the Nile River to a powerhouse that pretty much took over the entire area. The developer is Claris Victoria, who appears to be Russian in origin, so there are some mild translation discrepancies between the Russian version and the English version, but they are working on improving it, and I've actually seen the developer quite interested in improving the game, so far things look pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to do a new game here, click new game, and here we get to choose the prologue. This is basically the difficulty settings, and it will determine how much of a handicap you start with, and you will start with handicaps in different areas. Since I am a complete scrub at this game, I start at the easiest. Now, I want to point something out. The developer intentionally has made this game difficult. It is a turn-based strategy game, but it is not designed to be easy. It's, I think he described it as the Dark Souls of turn-based strategy games. That was the intent anyway. So obviously, playing it on easy for somebody who is not all that familiar with it. So I'm going to start the game. Yeah, I have played the tutorial once, so I don't think we're going to need it again. It'll probably just get in the way. Okay, so here we start, and you can see that's kind of similar to Civilization 5, but don't be deceived because this game is really nothing like Civilization 5, aside from the fact that it has a civilization in it called Egypt, and it is a turn-based strategy game. So you start out here on this map covered in clouds, and it's pretty impressive. It looks good. I think it is most similar in aesthetics to a board game. That's what it really reminds me of. But what we do here is go back. No, actually, we're going to drag this card onto this tile right here, and as you can see now, the this gatherer is actually hunting. So next turn we'll get one more food. So go ahead and click end turn. And, you know, things start out small, but they start getting big pretty soon. So now we can do some scouting, move them up there, end that turn. And you can see after a turn is finished, he's completed the scouting that area. And there's actually 2 wheat on that area. So maybe we should instead work that tile. Obviously, it's better than 1 wheat. And now we have enough to create an additional worker. So we can hire a worker. And this worker is going to do some more scouting, while this worker here produces wheat to sustain him. Each worker, I guess I'm going to call them, consumes 1 food per turn. Now, things look pretty simple at the beginning because the game gradually introduces you to more concepts. Because, you know, you're starting out as this sort of very bare bones tribe, and you're growing as time goes by. As you can see now, we've revealed another tile. More wheat, so I'm going to work that, and then we're just going to save up food until we have enough to hire an additional worker, which is 6 food for the next worker. The first worker, or the second worker I should say, was 1 food, but the third one is going to be 6. So now I can hire a third one, and that mission is completed. And there are little missions that sort of guide you in the right direction. So I've mentioned before that this game is intended to sort of be a history sim for the Egyptian civilization. And how that is accomplished is through these missions. So you'll be given missions, they're kind of like quests from time to time, and they'll either have bonuses that you'll get if you complete them, or there will be penalties attached if you fail to complete them. We have now gained access to production and the culture. Culture is used to sort of research. If you know anything about civilization, culture sort of performs that same role. As you gain more culture, you're going to gain access to different abilities that allow you to build new buildings, research things better, grow your army, etc. So I'm going to discover one like that, and the entire research tree, if we look at it, it's pretty straightforward, and you're not going to actually be diverting much from it. I mean, you can jump a few texts, but it generally, or I don't know, they call them discoveries, but generally it's not going to be beneficial. You're pretty much just going to march along here in a steady line of progression. So it adds a little bit of choice, but in the end, it's like you have a choice between one of 3 things that you could, it depends upon your situation, you could find one more beneficial than the others. So it's not quite as dynamic as games like Civilization's tech tree, obviously, and I think a lot of players confuse it with Civilization, which I think is unfortunate because it's really in an entirely different vein, and it only shares like the user interface maybe and just the general turn-based strategy. Okay, so we discovered the Cult of the Falcon. That was essentially the research that I completed, or they call them discoveries. And what I'm going to do is load a game that I completed. So each game is going to have about 200 turns before it ends. And you can actually play beyond that. There was a recent patch that made the game a little bit less difficult on the very easiest setting, as well as removed the time limit. So as you can see here, I have a whole bunch of saved games all the way up to turn 215, which is about when the game ended. So I think I'll load 206. And okay, so we're going to take a look at this. Now this is sort of towards the late game. Now you might recognize this area right here because this is where I began in the new game. This is essentially where you start out. And as you can see, you can really build out quite a bit. Look at all those farms. Unfortunately, they're not all that productive, so I didn't work them as much. But there is a whole map here, and then there is also a map of Egypt itself. So once you completely beat this map, and you beat it by essentially exploring the entire thing, as you saw, removing the fog of war from it, and then you'll sort of unlock the Egyptian map. And then this is when things start getting kind of serious in the game, because you have to work with, either bribe the various tribes that live along the Nile here to join your civilization, or you can actually defeat them through conquest. And in general, you're going to have to do a bit of both because resources are split. So it's going to be like you need a lot of food to do conquests as well as military, and you need a lot of production to do bribing, to give them gifts to get those civilizations on your side. So if you don't choose your battles wisely, like maybe the civilizations that are very strong in terms of military, it might be better to bribe them with production, because otherwise you could lose a good deal of your army. But in general, you're going to have to use both of them. So it's not like you can play to a style that says, well, I want to go all peaceful on this one, or I'm going to be a complete warmonger. You really don't have that option. And I think that speaks a lot to what the theme of the game is. You have more or less the illusion of choice here. A lot of it is actually scripted and sort of set in stone what you can and cannot do. And in the end, like I pointed out, if you do not meet the conditions for this event here, this is the unification of Egypt, and this is the final quest. If you do not meet the conditions for this, you will essentially lose the sole objective of the game. And you can play beyond that, but that's the objective, is to complete that final quest there. And I think in general, you're not given enough warning about the quests early on. Like, I think they could give you a little bit more warning for the quests that are very distant, in the very distant future. Like in Civilization, if you think about it, the victory screens, for example, you know what kind of objectives you have even before you start the game. Like you can go for a cultural victory, you can go for a domination victory. And the first time playing this, I really didn't know what I should have been shooting for, and so I was just sort of bumbling around. And I mostly lost because of that, I think. Obviously, I was playing on easiest difficulty. So let's talk about some other features here. In the top right corner, we have the chance of rebellion. Now, this is pretty much RNG. As it increases, it's just more likely that some of your captured communities here, they don't represent themselves too well until they actually turn into something else. Maybe I should have loaded the save that was a little bit further back so I could show you some of the combat. But what happens is once this number gets a little bit too high, there's a chance that some of your cities will rebel against you, which is, I think it's an unnecessary RNG element in the game. The probability of attack is based on the military power of the civilizations or the tribes around you, because obviously you're the only real civilization here. The other ones pretty much remain tribes until they're beaten up. Authority. Now this is used to practice these cults, and this has a lot. It's based very much in Egyptian mythology and history. I would say the developer is focusing more on the history, but I'm not all that well versed in Egyptian history, so there might be some mythology here, and so you can worship these different deities that the Egyptians apparently historically had in their pantheons. And what they'll do is they'll provide you different little bonuses. And I think this is where a lot of choice comes in, because there are 6 of them at the end of the game, and they all provide different kinds of bonuses. And you have to decide which one is relevant for that situation. And since they all increase each time you use these, they increased in cost. Like my next one's going to be 1,500 of the influence. It's called authority. It can really shape your game. And I think that's one of the areas that it gives you the most choice, because obviously, as I've pointed out before, the discoveries, aka research, is pretty much straightforward. It's very linear. You have about 3, choices each time it comes up. I'd say you can have as many as 6, and it's pretty much the same for the buildings. Now, the buildings in this game, you do not get to actually choose them. It is pretty much set in stone. You just get to choose an area. Like if we click go to here and we zoom down to the area that building would be built, and then you can see them on the map. There are these little tiny buildings here. And that's what it improves. It just improves the sort of yields on those tiles. So those things are very rigid, but the practicing of cults in this game is actually where you have to make a lot of your decisions as to how you're going to control the outcome of the game. So I think that covers both maps. You got the the map of Egypt and the settlement map. And I think this is one place where I would have done something differently. When you have your settlement map and then you migrate to the Egyptian map, the map of Egypt, I think it would have been nice to, instead of actually having to manage both, if this settlement map would sort of go away and then you could focus on the bigger picture. Because as it stands, what I end up doing here a lot is switching between screens all the time to manage my workers. Like I'm looking at my map and I'm saying, where am I going to get the best bang for buck? Like I want to place this unit on this citizen here on a tile or a resource that's going to give me the most food. So I have to keep comparing between these 2 screens all the time, because you don't get the, sort of visually overview them all at the same time on one screen. I think that would be something that I would change, but overall it was not something that actually really negatively impacted my playing experience of the game. I thought it was pretty good regardless. And what I would say is, the game is about 3 hours long. I think for the average person, you'd be able to play through it on the easiest difficulty in 3 hours if you just pretty much read every technology that came up. Because I pointed out before, you get a little pop-up every time, kind of like this. Every time an event happens or you finish a discovery, complete a building, and it tells you a little bit about the history behind what you just did. And if you read all that and play on easiest difficulty, I would say it takes about 3 hours to complete the game. And you probably won't win the first time, so that's where a lot of the incentive comes in to try and play it again to actually win it. One of the difficulties that I've had is deciphering some of the meanings here. Like, for example, we have a button called something else. It essentially means cancel, but I guess due to the translation abilities of the developer or whoever they had do it, some of the translations are a little bit questionable. Now, most of the text here is easily readable. I didn't have any trouble reading any of the historical accounts or anecdotes, but a lot of the actual, mechanical text was difficult for me to read. I wish I could show you a better one. I think it's in here, constructed, unavailable to construction. See, as the tooltip text for this, the alternative route, it says unavailable to construction. Obviously, that's not a thing that you would say. I think I've pretty much covered everything. You build buildings by having a builder down here. So after you select a building in the builder's menu, you have to drag, let me just get this guy out of here for now. Most buildings only allow you to use one citizen, but some buildings allow you to use multiple ones. And that's what the case was here with this building that I was building. I was building the city of Memphis. It basically costs production in turns. And it's I would say it's a very straightforward game. It does not take much time to master the basics. I mean, what do you have? You have food, you have production, the army, the culture, and authority. And those are pretty much basically all the resources you have. And you just work the map like this. You have units or citizens on the map, and you can drag around. They're just little cards. And each turn, they gather those resources. It's really as straightforward as that. And I think that's what makes it really reminds me of something like a board game. I could definitely see this being translated from a board game. I don't think that's the case, but the developer also mentioned that they are hoping to port it to a mobile device, which I think is a great idea, because this is definitely the kind of game that you could easily play on like a tablet. I think one other thing that I probably should cover is combat in this game. So I'm going to load a map. So in an attempt to demo as much of the game as I can, as you can see right here, what's going on is in this right corner, I'm actually attacking a city. And that's basically what they look like. The different tribes, they look like this. And you can drop your cards, your citizens on there, and they will attack. And I'm just going to rush ahead 8 turns, and I'm going to show you an attack. So you can see a lot of events are going on here. And what just happened is a whole bunch of cities revolted from me. And I'm going to be able to take them back, but I have to use my army to do so. And how do you use your army? Well, you take one of your citizens and drag them onto there. And this is like this area is under the control of rebels. The forces are 633 at the moment. If I attack, it will take 2 turns to prepare the attack. So I have 5k units at the moment, so that's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to play through another turn. And here we have just the sort of events that pop up from time to time. In this case, it's mobilization. The Horus encourages his loyal servants to fight the evil spirits who have possessed the mind of the rebels. Order must be restored. So this is just basically a flavor event. It gives you a mechanical bonus to your army. And one more turn, we're actually going to be transported into the battle. And this is how combat works in this game. You don't ever actually have to do any fighting. It's all predetermined for you, sort of. You just click the attack button, and then it sort of does this risk style reenactment of it. I lost 27 units and they lost 633. I'm not exactly sure how it is calculated, but it would appear to really favor somebody with even a little bit extra odds. Like if you have 60%, you're very likely to win. It's not like in Civilization 4 where you could have 90% and you could easily lose if you got a rotten deal. So I kind of like that. Like it's not too unbiased. It's not too random, I guess you could say. And then order is restored to that tile. It just turned back into food. And I really think that pretty much demos the entire game. It is not a very complicated game. If we exit here, we can see my current score. It has a tutorial. I skipped it, obviously. And for the most part, I like it. I think it serves a very important segment of the turn-based strategy market that is often overlooked. The focus on recreating historical situations like this. In this case, it was Egypt, but I was a big fan of the Rise and Fall Civilization mod for Civilization 4, which sort of did the same thing, except it gave you more opportunities, I would say, to divert from the historical path that Civilization has chosen. In this case, it's a very simple game that you can complete in a few hours, which is nice because I don't like turn-based games to drag on too long. You start to lose interest in what you're doing, generally is what I've experienced. So this is definitely a game I would recommend. I think it is very competent and competitively priced for what it is. It's under $10 on Steam right now. The developer has another game as well, so if you like what you see here, you might want to check that one out in addition to Pre-Civilization Egypt. That's the name of the game. And I am RazingHel, and thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.